Let's always post this later.
We need back over here. Right,
Peter's here. Good.
Peter's here.
Yeah, Peter came in.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay, full house. Soon we will have Nick and everybody will be there. All right, so shall we start?
Sure.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so welcome everybody and happy June 3rd. We are going to quickly approve the agenda. So anybody have any issues with that? Somebody want to recommend that we go ahead with it? Alan.
For the public, we have a late item, which is the furniture.
Oh, isn't it on there?
It's on the email or on new material. Sure.
Oh, okay. Okay. So the topic is on, but the material is extra. Okay, and adoption of the minutes. Anybody have anything about the minutes? I just wanted, there's this thing here in the minutes stuff, but I think, is that a link? Should that have a link? Needs of seniors.
Oh, sure.
Okay, so it's not really a content change, it's just a formatting change.
Yeah.
Okay, recommend that we adopt the minutes. Bobbin, Sue Ellen, everybody online is good. Okay. All right, so now we can get to the interesting stuff. We have 2 delegations today, and we're going to jump into the first one, which this committee has heard about for months now, about the report coming out of the group in Toronto who had funding from Accessibility Canada to work on accessibility in national parks. And here on Bowen, beaches and trails and park life, even though there are no national parks, that is one of our top priorities. So we're looking forward to learning from you, and go ahead and then we'll have a bit of a question period. All right, so over to you. I'll let you introduce yourselves.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. I'm Allison. I'm a 30-something-year-old white female with shoulder-length brown hair, and I'm wearing glasses. I'm talking to you from my home just outside Calgary, Alberta, and my background is blurred.
And hi, everyone. My name's Hannah. I am a young white woman with red hair, and I'm coming to you from Toronto today. I'm also in my home office due to the time change. And I am a PhD student at the University of Toronto, and I also had a lovely chance to work on this project with Allison.
Yeah, so we're representing our larger team. There's about 8 of us in total. And before we get into it, we wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that all parkland in Canada is on Indigenous lands and that we all play an essential role in protecting and conserving these lands. So on our title slide here, we have a photo from Banff National Park in Alberta, as well as the title, A Park Accessibility Framework, Making National Parks Accessible to People with Disabilities, and our UHN Kite Research Institute logo. So we're here today to tell you a bit about our research on park accessibility, and more importantly, share some practical ideas about how you can begin or continue to make your own parks more accessible for people with disabilities. So we look forward to sparking some ideas and answering questions. So you may be aware that the federal government is in the process of developing a lot of standards related to accessibility. This is all in an effort for Canada to be barrier-free by 2040. So on this slide, we state our objectives, which are to identify barriers for people with disabilities and their companions, as well as solutions, and to develop a framework to conceptualize park accessibility. And I'm sorry, I need to go sort out my children. So Hannah, maybe you can jump in for me for a second there.
Gladly. I'm sure everyone understands the joys of working from home. So as Allison said, we really wanted to identify these barriers and find a way to conceptualize or help better understand park accessibility. And why we wanted to do that was to help park organizations, but also to help Accessibility Standards Canada inform the later renditions of their outdoor accessibility standard. And I have our contact information on this slide, but of course I'm going to put that on the end of the presentation as well, so you can reach out to us if you have any questions by phone or by email. And on our next slide here, I have a photo of our team members that were a part of the Park Accessibility Project. And as we suggested, our main question to answer was, how do we make Canada's parks more accessible? So although this project was focused on national parks, it is widely applicable to lots of different parks across Canada and beyond. So we have our team members here and an Engineering Health logo, which is the lab that we come from, and the University Health Network Kite Research Institute, which is where we're based.
Awesome, thanks, Hannah. So our project had 3 key outputs. On this slide, we list them using decorative font colors and icons. But the most important information is that first, our park's accessibility matrix and the accompanying solution guide. So some of you might have seen this already. It is on our website. It's a free download, and it's a great tool for learning more about park accessibility and barriers to access. And then the third one is our accessibility assessment tool, which can be used to rate accessibility in your own parks. There was also a number of key findings that emerged from our research, and we picked just a few of them to share here today. So this slide lists 3 key findings in simple black font. First is that accessibility has evolved. I'm sure we're all aware of the disability rights movement, and even with the passing of the Accessibility Canada Act in 2019, the movement isn't over. So our understanding of disability has evolved, and so has the assistive devices and technologies and building designs. Secondly, is accessibility is not achieved through standards and guidelines alone. My background is actually in policy, so I love a good policy, and I think it's an important tool in our toolbox, but words on a page won't achieve accessibility. It's about actions. And so the third thing is that accessibility solutions require a multi-pronged approach. Most accessibility barriers can't be resolved through a single lens, but we'll go into that in a bit more detail later in the presentation. So here we'll give you just a quick overview of our accessibility matrix. So on this slide, we have a very simplified mock-up of the matrix. On the horizontal axis is all the different types of activities or facilities you'll see in a park. And on the vertical axis is, it's a different way around. On the vertical axis, you'll see activities and facilities at parks. And on the horizontal axis, you'll see different types of disabilities and needs. And then within each cell are numbered solutions. So these are solutions that would help address barriers that might prevent someone from participating in each of the different activities or using the facilities. Around this image of the matrix, we have some of the sub-projects that fed into this matrix. So we have arrows leading from the sub-project names in towards the matrix. We have our national survey. We did a review of YouTube videos. We assessed parks on site. We also looked at park websites. We conducted in-depth interviews, and we also had ongoing stakeholder engagement. And so our hope is that this matrix will really be a useful tool for all land managers or municipal leaders as well. So along with the matrix is a park accessibility solution guide. So as I mentioned, inside each cell is a numbered solution, and then this corresponds to a more detailed description in the solution guide. So you can cross-reference those numbers. Here on this slide, we have a screenshot, very small screenshot of our actual matrix. So it's showing the cell for trail designs, cross-reference with vision disabilities. And so in that cell, we've got like 6 different numbered solutions. And then below that, we have a screenshot from our solution guide, which is displaying the detailed description of solution 4.1.5, which is about obstacle removal on trails.
So can you just read that, what that text was?
Sure, yeah. So for obstacle removal, so removing obstacles from trails and ensuring any remaining obstacles are no larger than 5 centimeters or 2 inches, in size significantly increases the accessibility of these paths. This measure is essential for creating a safe and navigable environment, particularly for individuals with mobility disabilities or vision disabilities. Low-hanging branches should be regularly trimmed to maintain clear pathways. These steps help in preventing tripping hazards and ensure that trails are accessible for wheelchair users, individuals using other mobility aids, and those who might have difficulty navigating over, around, or under obstacles. I'll also note that our accessibility matrix is in an Excel document and the solution guide is in a Word document. So those two documents, when you download them, should be fully accessible as well. So on this slide, we have a picture of an example of our scoring tool being used to assess accessibility of beach activities at national parks. So the tool is a very simple matrix design. It's based on our park accessibility matrix, but instead of solutions in each cell, land managers can populate each cell with a check mark or an X, depending on whether the parks include the solutions from the solution guide that make that activity accessible to each disability type. So in this example, it's just completely made up. We're assessing beach activity accessibility. So the beach in this scenario is a short distance from the parking lot, change rooms, and washrooms. It has clear signage in large print and braille. It has benches and seating, but there are no beach mats. So it would be difficult for someone who uses a wheelchair or a walker to get onto the beach. So therefore, the beach is accessible to 6 of the 7 disability communities we've considered, and it would receive a score of 86. If the park were to add beach mats to make it easier to get onto the beach, it would score 7 out of 7 or 100%. So overall, it's a very simplified scoring method when looking at disabilities and accessibility. But as we mentioned before, like accessibility isn't about kind of words on paper, and it's not a box checking exercise. So this is really just a starting point for parks to really assess where the gaps are in their own parks. And we would recommend using this in conjunction with a multi-pronged approach, which we'll get into next.
Thanks so much, Allison. I'll do my best here to not go over time, but we have so much to share with you, so happy that we have some question time after this. So I want to tell you a little bit about our park accessibility framework. So out of all of what Allison explained, and to answer the question from the beginning, how can we make parks more accessible? We developed a framework to answer that question, which is kind of a summarization of a summary of everything that we were able to find out in this project. So on this next slide, I have a graphic of our proposed framework that is an approach to achieving more accessible parks. So the framework showcases a round continuous cycle with 3 words on its outer circle: built environment, adaptive equipment, and practice. In the center of the circle is the term diverse user input. All of these points are interconnected by bidirectional arrows with diverse user input at the center of it all. So these pillars, if you will, of park accessibility are not individual silos, and they support each other. And I'll explain how in a moment. But it's important to note that given the continuous nature, there's obviously a need for reevaluation of accessibility approaches over time. So this framework really highlights how our project findings can be put into action by park management teams, whether that be municipal, national, provincial, and so on. So I want to start by going through each pillar of the framework briefly, and then I'll give some examples to show how these pillars work together. So the first slide here is for built environment. This pillar focuses on removing physical barriers to park infrastructure, such as barriers in washrooms, picnic areas, parking, signage, swimming areas, and beaches. The next pillar is adaptive equipment, which means that adaptive equipment are seen as a part of the solution to creating more accessible parks. They're used to overcome barriers where the infrastructure has not or cannot be changed easily. This can include personal devices brought by park users themselves or devices provided by park organizations, such as a rental or borrowing system. For example, as in the photos, we showcase a beach wheelchair with large smooth tires, a trail rider, which is a one-wheeled device for trekking difficult terrain with companions, a beach mat for wheelchair access on the sand, devices for audio guides, and a tactile display board on a nature trail. And for the third pillar is practice, which considers the ongoing practices that maintain accessibility strategies over time. So this could include a wide range of things, such as social inclusivity at your park. So having park policies that are inclusive to all. Maintaining your spaces and equipment so it remains accessible over time. This could include maintenance of sand on a Moby mat, for example. And maintaining the information that you have accessible to the public, for example, on your website. For example, in these photos, we have some examples of practice. So the US Free Park Pass could be a policy, or is a policy. A sign that says no pets allowed is an example of a policy. A person using a wheelchair and looking at a sign that's at eye level and working with park staff to explain this sign. A collection of communication icons. Another example, but also the example in the photo here, is a group where they're being led by a park staff on a tour. Now we'll talk about the pillar at the very center of the three that I just mentioned, which is user input. And by user input, we mean that people with disabilities, those who do and do not already visit your park spaces, should be involved in decision-making processes. Importantly, this should include diverse persons with disabilities, including racialized, gender diverse, and Indigenous peoples. As Alison said, we all play an essential role in protecting and conserving these lands and making these decisions together as a team. User input in this way could involve hiring people with disabilities to manage these spaces as a part of the management team. It could also include working with organizations that represent persons with disabilities. User input could be collected in various ways, but it should reflect the desires of the particular group that's involved and their preferences. This could be discussions online or online or in person, accessible surveys, phone calls, emails, just to name a few. So I'll run you through some examples. The first being accessible beach access. So this will show you how the framework can kind of come to life here. So in the built environment, you may want to consider building accessible boardwalks, piers, docks, and then in the photo here, I have something called Sea Tracks, which is a piece of the built environment that can be built on the sand, and it's two metal tracks that a chair sits on that an individual can transfer onto, and it will take them into the water. Adaptive equipment, on the other hand, could include beach mats, such as Moby mats or access tracks, wheelchairs, such as a hippocamp or sand cruiser. And then to give you an example of practice, we have regular daily maintenance of beach mats and boardwalks to clear sand, as we know that impacts accessibility on those surfaces. This could also involve training your staff on how to use the equipment and how to inform visitors on how to use the equipment, as well as educating visitors on how to appropriately use the beach mats. And that means that they are not picnic areas, but designated for people who need to use them. Providing sufficient information online and over the phone on these is also quite important. And I'm going to pass by this one, which we can come back to just to kind of wrap us up. And I want to make sure we keep you all on your schedule. But I had an example that I just flashed by about accessible mountain biking trails. We're happy to talk about these. Feel free to reach out to us, or we can talk about them in the question time. Just one other thing that we really wanted to highlight before we finish up is the importance of information. So what's really important about information is it's in a very affordable, quick, and easy way to keep your potential visitors informed about the accessibility of your park. So it's really important to provide up-to-date, accurate information online or over the phone in multiple accessible formats, so that when people travel to your park, they don't get there and find something that they didn't expect, because we all know how disappointing that can be. And we really want people to know what they can expect when they're getting there. So for example, if you get to a park that said it had an accessible bathroom, but there were no other details about it, and you get there only to find that, yes, there is a rail inside the bathroom to support yourself. However, there's no automatic opening door and there's no back support on the toilet. So those are the kind of the specific details that people may be looking for when you're talking about how accessible your park facilities are. So on the screen here, I have a list of different types of information you could include. One is parking, the surface of the parking lot, how many accessible spots are available and their dimensions, your bathroom facilities, as I mentioned, how many stalls are available, do they have an emergency alert button, is there a sink with soap and water, the trail surfaces, elevation, guide ropes or handrails, technology, so where is their cell signal, where is their access to electricity and outlets, and transportation, so how can people get to your park, and when they're there, are there shuttle buses, how can they get around the park? So all of this should be obviously available in accessible formats in multiple formats. And we really wanted to finish off on that because I think it ties together the whole framework and that we can really inform people about all of those stages of the framework that we touched on. And that's a really good place to start. I want to thank our funders, Accessibility Standards Canada, and open it up to questions. We will share our contact information to be distributed, and we would love to talk more about this topic. We have a lot to talk about, so thank you so much.
All right, well, thank you so much too. And we have the links to the documents, the matrix and the tools that you talked about. So I think you gave a good idea, how we could use your report to guide us through an approach to evaluating and prioritizing accessibility in the parks on Bowen. So thanks for that. And I will open it up to questions. So, members of the committee. Sue Ellen is one of the counselors here, and she is very interested in parks.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks very much for your presentation. My question is, having not read all the details, like when, I think this is fairly new, and I'm wondering how it's being used, and is it something that's being used in municipal parks?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So the report and everything was published at the very end of March. So you're right that it is very new. It is publicly accessible, and we did share it with all of our stakeholders. So we have contacts at Parks Canada, a bunch of the provincial parks. We've presented with some Ontario municipal parks before as well. So they have access, or they were notified about it. I don't think we've heard back from any municipal parks to say they're using it yet.
But yes.
Yeah.
It's so new. Then my question doesn't really make sense, but
yeah.
This is great. You're making me remember some park trail accessibility things that I've been involved in and how useful this would have been. Thank you.
Yes, yeah. I mean, that's it. The funding is obviously at a federal level, so the research was a little bit targeted towards provincial parks, and we expanded it to national parks. But things like picnic areas and trails and even beaches and stuff, it's all pretty universal things to be thinking about at a municipal level as well. So it just won't get tied to the Accessible Canada Act, but hopefully. I think BC has provincial legislation for accessibility.
That's why we're here.
That's why we're here.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So hopefully more provinces will follow suit as well. Alberta is lagging behind there. So yeah. And then the other way that this research is being used is we did submit everything to Accessibility Standards Canada. And hopefully, the intention is that this information will make its way into the next iteration of the outdoor standards, the outdoor spaces standards.
I can also add to that just really quickly. We've actually been invited to Ontario Parks employee training sessions. So we'll be involved in one of their training sessions this summer, which is exciting. So one other way.
Great. That's great. I know about how far ahead those are planned. So I'm really great that you got into some of them, just that it's all happening now. Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Alex, Jessica, Peter, I'm looking online. Not seeing any hands. Alex, Robin?
I saw Peter's hand.
Thank you, sorry. Peter, okay, go ahead, Peter.
This is really interesting to me as someone with mobility problems. I'm very glad to see this, and thanks for the work you're doing. I wonder, it's I mean, it's immensely difficult to provide access to for people who need, big, flat, wide paths to get around. And and obviously the other thing that comes up, and I wonder how much you've talked about this, is there has to be a balance. Obviously, you can't have a big, flat, wide path to every place in a national park, and it wouldn't be desirable even if we could. There's got to be a kind of balance between making things available to those people who find it difficult to get there and keeping some places special for those who are willing to walk a long way up a mountain carrying a heavy pack and get hot and sweaty doing it. You know what I mean? And as one who used to do that myself and now can't, I'm quite interested in how you're looking at the trade-off there.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little. I think you make an excellent point that we've definitely heard before. That's definitely a huge conversation in the world of parks research, is finding that balance between protecting natural land and creating accessible spaces. I think there is definitely a balance in that, ideally we have parks in the same area, some that are accessible with wider, flatter paths, and we have some that are, not and not, you know, um, not fixed by humans too much. I think what we've seen in some parks that have been really powerful is parks that have options and parks that inform visitors of their options. And back to that really important information part is knowing what you're getting into. So I think there are also lots of people with disabilities who want that challenge and who want to go, up the steep trails and things like that. So I think having options and informing people would be my first starting place so that people know what they're getting into.
Thanks. Can I say one other thing? I was interested that you mentioned making equipment and things available also to visitors, because I mean I'm facing this. I'm going to the Okanagan at the end of next month or this month. So there is a trail called the Kettle Valley Trail, which is big and wide and used to be an old railway line. It's very gentle gradient. And I'd love to see that, but I don't have any kind of device that I can use to explore that. And I know that sometimes you can rent things, but even trying to find a place to rent something like that is difficult. So I wonder if you will look at just making information available about where people can get things. Not everybody with a disability can afford to have some sort of trail type wheelchair for when they want to go. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're extremely expensive. I couldn't agree more. Alison, I wanted to bring up a Recreation Adaptive Society, RAD. They're based out of Victoria, BC, but I know that they run these they drop these big shipping containers of accessible devices to use in parks, and they're expanding. So there's a handful of them, and I can share the link with Kathy and Steph, but that's just one that comes to mind, that they do have some boxes, but they're expanding because, like you said, there just isn't enough yet.
Yeah, we did hear a lot about equipment rental programs and the expanding those options and making multiple types of equipment accessible, but also having a really thoughtful program, so that, because sometimes if you're, some devices you might just be using, but other devices you might have to leave your own personal device at the station and leave your wheelchair there and then get into this off-terrain wheelchair. And so having some sort of accessible or really thoughtful program in place was something that we heard about. And the equipment piece as well, I think, Peter, speaks to your earlier question about how do you balance the giving people options and challenges versus fully, universally paved flat trails. And I think that's why that multi-pronged approach is so important, because there's different ways to approach barriers. And one of those is to remove the barriers completely from the built environment by paving a trail and grading it so it's a gentle slope. And then the other way is to provide the equipment that people can use to kind of get over the obstacles or get over the barriers. And so that's where some of that equipment, I think, plays a key role in expanding accessibility and looking at it from different lenses.
Thank you.
Robin has a question.
I just wanted to comment for Peter. The Disability Foundation has an organization that provides adaptive equipment for various recreational activities, including trail riders. And they have a club, and they do various trips with equipment and support staff. It might be worth contacting them. I'm not sure if they rent the equipment, but I know they have, that organization has a strong commitment to adaptive equipment for people with mobility issues. So might be worth checking with them. And my other question was around, I noticed in the matrix in disability types, communication hidden disabilities weren't sort of categorized there in the first slide. Just wondering what that was about in terms of how accessibility in your framework is utilized for access for parks for people with, other disabilities other than mobility?
Yeah, I think I can answer that. I think so. The slide that we have was not, and it was not actually all of the categories that we had in the matrix. So
Right.
that was just a quick snapshot. So there are communication, there is hidden disabilities within those categories. If that answers your question.
Got it. And then
Yeah.
my last question was, you suggest that this framework should have regular evaluation. How would you conceive that? Who would do it? How would you, implement that?
Yeah, so we did a few accessibility assessments at a couple of parks. I think we did 4 parks in total, and we used can you guys hear that? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Hannah, do you want to do?
Yeah. No worries. Yeah. So what Allison was saying is that I think when they did the site visits and even the website, looking at park websites, it took a group of people with many different lived experiences to come together. So I think that's one of the key points, is when you're going to be evaluating, to do it as a group of people who can bring a different perspective to the table. I think it does involve trained professionals who are trained in accessibility, but it definitely also involves people who are not trained, who are end users, who use those spaces. So I think a good place to start is to have some sort of shared space to come together, whether it's online or in person, to take a look at what you decided, a couple of years back, and say, does this still working for us, and why or why not?
Yeah, and then I was just gonna add that we sort of not tested out, but we utilized 2 different existing assessment tools. So one was the Rick Hansen Foundation accessibility assessment tool, and then the other one was Access Now's Access Outdoors app. So they kind of, in the last couple of years, they've been expanding their app development to create a specific app for the outdoor environments. So we kind of trialed those 2 assessment tools, and then wrote up a summary about kind of the pros and cons, what these tools measure, where the gaps still are, and things like that. So those are those plus our own assessment tool would be kind of potential resources when you're looking at your own parks.
They are in the report.
Yes. So there's a chapter in the report about using those two tools.
Okay.
And I believe I think they're also linked on the website, I believe. I'll check.
So Sue Ellen, and then we should stop.
Sure. I'll just say quickly, this is really helpful. Thank you. And then that this is coming from somebody who's been involved in park management teams. So I like that your three, the built environment, adaptive equipment, and practice, including maintenance, kind of fits with what Kathy uses, which is environment, technology, and training behavior, training/behavior. I don't know, I'm getting used to these kinds of categories, but it occurs to me that often people look at the technology first, or the mobility tools or the equipment first. And yet that's so expensive, and it's so hard to tailor, and it's so difficult to maintain and expensive to maintain, to make sure it's going to be safe for the next user, and cleaning and all that. So I just, I like the multi-pronged approach. And my question is the options, well, the info ahead of time, does that fit into your sort of environment category?
I would say that fits into our, wow, now I'm drawing a blank.
It doesn't matter.
The third one?
I practice. I considered it like, yeah.
Practice, thank you.
I consider it part of practice, because it involves a lot of, like, I guess I saw it more as like an intentional practice to be providing information, including it in your training, including it in your marketing materials and stuff like that.
That's perfect, actually. Thank you, because it implies the updating your website regularly, you know, because things change and people could get there. And okay, good. Thank you very much.
Great.
Okay,
thank you.
This is all being recorded, as you know, so I'm just going to say, so it's on the recording. You don't have to take all these notes, Steph. Is what I need to understand, which we don't need to discuss now, but you know, we have the recreation center we're going to talk about next, and we have parks, and I don't actually understand if those two things are connected or separate in the way the Muni is organized. So that's something I need to get clear, and maybe we'll learn that shortly. The other thing that is running through my mind is our librarian, who isn't here, but she sent today some funding opportunities, and I had a quick look at them, and there are other funding opportunities I have in my mind, and I think it could be very suitable for a team of people who are living with disabilities, who may or may not be students, to actually go around and do some of the applying of your methodology to our various parks. So does this seem to you something that, you know, could be a great student summer project, especially for a student with disability?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I would say one of the things we learned from, you know, working with Access Now and Rick Hansen was there's quite a lot of prep work that goes into the assessment, you know, so we're not sending someone into an environment that is really, really inaccessible to them and could lead to a danger or a safety issue. So just having something like that in mind, maybe partnering students up together, so there's, you know, no one's ever kind of doing an assessment alone. But yeah, no, absolutely, I do think it would be a great.
I'm kind of guessing that you may be the hub where, you know, students on Bowen Island and students in, you know, Nova Scotia, and there may be students all over the country who are doing projects, and maybe you could be a hub for, you know, them to meet each other and share, and that'd be part of the learning experience. So let me know if you're going to do that. That's my challenge to you. I know, she knows me, she knows I do that, but I think it'd be a huge way of spreading knowledge and raising awareness, and, you know, so on and so forth. So lots of great ideas. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah. You'll
Thank
have
you all
to
so much.
come and visit us one day.
Yes.
We'd love to.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll stop sharing. Take care, everyone.
All right, so now he has been waiting patiently. So tell us about the community center accessibility.
Sure. Well, I was actually, my original intention was to come in request review of our accessibility policy. So part of building a new building is building all the policies that go along with that. So I've been involved in that with the Joint Management Committee. And I sent it through the staff and I was hoping to input or comments or things that are missing and things where we could do better or things that, you know, I might not be, or we may not be seeing as clearly as, or may not be seen as clearly as they could be. And then of course, I'm always happy to answer the community center if that's where we would like to go.
Okay, so I have a few notes, but let's just go around the table. I don't know, this was attached to the document, the linked agenda. So everybody should have it.
And of course, it doesn't all have to be right now. Like I'm always open and available for contact at any time. I just we wanted to make sure that we were in accessibility committee in regards to the accessibility.
Well, we're really happy that you did that. So I don't know if everybody's had a chance to look at it, but anybody want to kick off the comments? Anybody ready? Looking at the screen, Peter, Nick, hi Nick. Just
hi there. Sorry, I have not had, I've not seen this, not had a chance to review it beforehand. If it's as of today.
Nick, I just realized I just put a note to our IT department because your name wasn't in the group email, so you would not have received this. So I apologize on behalf of the entire organization.
Well,
popping in.
It is a 2-pager, so
yeah, it's on the screen now. If we wanted, do you want to read it out loud, please?
Would you like me to?
It's too long.
Oh yeah, let's go
Give
through
you a little
it.
brief
Just
review.
go through it from front to end. We'll do it that way.
Sure, I can do that. I'll I should
That's also
warm up.
good for Alex and Jessica to hear it, I guess.
Great. So accessibility, the policies, the accessibility, the purpose, the Bowen Island Community Center is.
Just let me check. Can everybody hear, Lee?
yes.
Okay, good.
I will use my theater school.
Get your voice.
Go for it.
The Bowen Island Community Center is committed to ensuring that our services, facilities, and programs are accessible to all members of the community, regardless of their abilities. This accessibility policy outlines our commitment to provide equal access to all individuals and to foster an inclusive environment for everyone. To ensure equitable access for the community of Bowen, we seek to remove all barriers, be they physical, financial, or otherwise, which may prevent someone from participating in community activities.
Okay, can we just stop here? Do you have any comments? So one of my little comments in there, you say physical, financial, or otherwise.
Sure.
But I really think it needs a word or two in there about attitudes. So stigma, you know, stigma is a huge barrier. And it isn't physical and it isn't financial. And I think it deserves more than an otherwise.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so it's kind of the attitudes about inclusivity that, you know,
Right.
minimize stigma. You can figure out how to do it, but I think that's an important concept.
Thank you. Mayor.
Next section, yeah.
Alex has got his hand
Oh,
up.
sorry, Alex.
Video now unmuted. I just where it says participating in community activities, I think it's also important to look at the other side of that coin, maybe adjusted to participating or facilitating activities. As somebody who may want to facilitate an activity may also be facing accessibility barriers. And just a point to Chair Fuller's comment about the attitude, about the barriers around stigma. A possible word might be attitudinal barriers. That might be helpful.
Yeah.
Discussion.
Sorry, for some reason I can't find the raising my hand. So after Alex, if that's okay if I speak. Sorry, were you finished, Alex?
I was.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, go ahead, Jessica.
Oh, I was just in my work doing policies using the framework of CARF, which is, can't remember what it stands for off the top of my head. Something rehabilitation facilities. I can't think of what it is. Anyway, when they talk about their accessibility policy, they have different types of barriers that they discuss, and yeah, physical, financial. I wish I had them in front of me, and of course I don't. Attitudinal was definitely one of them. Technological is another one. And I can't remember what the others were, but yeah, there was like 7 or 8 different categories. I could find them and send them. I don't know if that would be helpful or not, but
Could I just clarify? Was it CARF? CARF? Was that?
yeah, but it's in their standards somewhere, so I'd have to go find somewhere in standard L. It's like really a very, very big manual, but I like their categories because it gives a bit more specificity, I guess.
So
I can definitely send those in.
I can find them and send them to the committee if they're helpful.
It's the Commission on the Accreditation of Rehabilitation Facilities, if that helps.
Thank you. I couldn't remember what the C and the A stood for, but I knew what I was talking about, but just not the name. Anyway, sorry, if that would be helpful, I could send those.
Did you have a quick one? As a not disabled person, as far as I know, but who wants to recognize and keep this in mind, you may want to use the words visible or invisible. Just something about to recognize that not everybody's going to appear to have, for somebody who might actually look at this policy and be thinking, oh, yeah. Anyway, just a suggestion.
So maybe after it says remove all barriers. Well, you can figure out where to put it in.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to list all the different kinds of disabilities and categories, but that might be an important.
I think that is important because in some of my conversations with people on Bowen, when I was talking about the survey we conducted, they said, oh, we thought that was just about wheelchairs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So don't assume everybody understands that.
I'm due.
Yeah, and I agree, that's important. That's why I mentioned it earlier in parks access, visible, invisible disabilities are, and that goes under the category of just social inclusion, really. Getting all groups and the diverse groups included in your policy here.
Yes.
So is there a change that you want?
No, I'm just confirming what.
Okay, great.
Sure, that's in.
You have
I got a question. I'm on the committee. Are we using equal and equitable interchangeable? I feel like equitable might be a better word than equal. And maybe I can repeat it.
I see equitable, to ensure equitable access.
Equitable. Oh, I see.
That is actually hugely important.
Thank you.
That is hugely important.
To change to equitable as opposed to equal.
Yeah, so the point is that some people need more, not that everybody needs the same.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good catch.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Okay, next section, compliance.
Compliance with legislation. So this is, we recognize our responsibility to comply with all applicable legislation and regulations regarding accessibility, including but not limited to the Canadian Human Rights Act, the Accessible British Columbia Act, and the Accessibility Standards for Customer Service. I also have a question in regards to this, in regards to websites and things like that, what's it called? the website content accessibility guidelines, and I know they aren't really a legislation or anything like that, but I'm trying to do research on how to include those into something like this, and where those need to be enshrined in policy, or if they are procedural for when we build our website, because we don't have one yet.
Alex has his hand up. Do you want, would you like to go, Alex?
Yeah, I can speak to that. The World Wide Web Consortium's WCAG guidelines probably, while they aren't, as you pointed out, legislation, would be something good to put in here as something that can be followed, when designing and developing the website, but also making sure that there's good user testing, because the standards just lay out the best way to do something, but they don't actually necessarily lead to a usable product at the end. So I think a combination of those standards with good user-based testing would be probably my recommendation. Having done similar types of work with a university in the past, where accessibility, they were looking to improve it for their website. So they really, kind of use these as if they were legislation, and then but used user testing as the final kind of test of to make sure a product was, their website in this case, was accessible.
Sue Ellen?
Yeah, thank you. I'm wondering if those guidelines, the web accessible guidelines, what was it? WHCE?
WCA, I believe.
WCH. Okay, anyway, I thought they might belong in the next section, the accessible facilities and services. Where, because it's like accessible parking spaces, it's just digital. And the user testing might fit in there better as well, in terms of some kind of ongoing assessments like the previous speakers spoke about. So that's just my suggestion.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think there is something about that needs to be added into that ABCD. There's a few other things, but I think for this compliance with legislation, I think what you've got there is fine, but maybe you want another, I don't know if it's another heading or it falls in that paragraph, something about just because there's guidelines and you're going to meet the guidelines, it doesn't mean you can't strive, for excellence by using available guidelines, standards, best practices, and resources that would kind of go beyond what's required, but make it great. That kind of idea.
So
and I think the accessibility committee, advisory committee, we will have in our report a whole bunch of resources. So this national parks report is a resource. So it's kind of a best practice, today that we can use it. So I think maybe that's part of what the committee can kind of try to bring to anybody in the Muni's attention is, it's not just you, it's everybody who has to know about web accessibility. So maybe you just need a motherhood and apple pie line there.
So I just put in and commit to striving for excellence in this area. I don't know.
Informed by guidelines, standards, and shared best practices, which goes beyond legislation.
And in reality, there will be times where even though there is guidelines, they sometimes, to get the best accessibility, you got to just ignore the guideline. And sometimes that's, especially in web accessibility, something you see quite often.
Anyway, I think you can put something in there that's kind of, in addition, we go the extra mile and use whatever information, and we can put in our plan that that's something that we will help you with.
Kathy, I'm just pointing at the screen because Steph is trying to capture some of the wording up there.
Oh, okay.
And it's going, so you can,
Sorry, it's not over there. Okay.
Yeah.
just so you know it's being
It's
captured.
behind my
Yeah.
back. Okay. Are you good?
Yeah.
Are you good, Lee?
Yeah, I was just, is there other legislation that should be included, but I guess that sort of goes in.
I think that's good.
Thank you.
And you don't want
There
to
is.
be too specific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because this, you don't want to keep revising this every 2 months.
Fair.
So it says all applicable legislation, so I think that covers the whole thing. Okay, accessible facilities and services.
We are committed to providing accessible facilities and services to all members of the community. This includes, but is not limited to, accessible parking spaces close to the entrance, ramps for individuals using wheelchairs or mobility aids, accessible washrooms with appropriate fixtures and grab bars, large print and braille signage for individuals with visual impairments. I fully acknowledge that this is a much too short list. But yeah.
This is, if I may.
Yep, Sue Ellen?
This is where I thought you could add a E, accessible website. It's just to catch that idea.
Yeah.
And then you could put other or something.
I think. I don't know if you really want a list of all these very specific things, or if you want to go more conceptual.
Sure.
Yeah.
So that kind of trio of this includes, but isn't limit. This includes, you know, things about the environment, and then you could have some examples. So the physical environment would be, yeah, the built environment. So like what the people from the parks had, those kind of environment technologies practices.
Right.
So if you go with those 3 concepts, and then under each of them, you can give some examples. So ramps, you know, that's an environment thing. Parking is an environment thing. Washrooms, I think it's an environment thing. I don't know how you think about Braille. Is that I don't know where that fits, but you know, I think we also need some technologies and we need some practices. So I think that's a kind of broader way of organizing this.
Universal design.
I really like that idea of having those broad categories, the environment, the technology, and the behavior / training is how I remember Kathy speaking about it before. Because then it'll just be a more helpful policy document. You can scan it and go, oh, I see.
Or maybe what you actually were intending here, because the next session is training and awareness, which would be the practice piece.
Yeah.
So maybe you just need another, maybe you do have it. You just have to kind of declare it that facilities and service, it's facilities, it's accessible environment. And then you've got a bunch of stuff. And then you've got training and awareness, which is kind of the practice part. And then what isn't here is the technology part.
Well, and again, there's less visible disabilities aren't on that list.
But they would be they need different environments and they need different technologies. What would you, definitely the training and awareness.
Well, that's where we're gonna have a discussion on seating, furniture, lighting.
Yeah.
Sound.
So that's part of the environment.
Yeah. So that could be on there too, but I think if you're gonna go with, say, your purpose and include less visible disabilities, and then have those sort of categories in there to begin with, they should, you know, run through your entire policy.
Yeah.
To be consistent.
Thank you.
So you can think about if you want to change the headings a little bit to environment technology training.
I already did change one.
Yes, because I think things like having auditory room systems. That would be in the technology piece. And there's probably other stuff that could go in the technology piece, but
Your accessible website could be in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
yes,
In
exactly.
the practice one?
In the technology.
Technology. Yeah. I've got it.
Okay, so we'll leave that one with you.
Please, yes, thank
You
you.
can chat later if that.
Are you folks on the Zoom? Can you hear us?
Yes,
Okay.
Thanks, I've started to mumble.
well, I can.
Okay, and then the next section, we have feedbacks and complaints.
So training and awareness, would you like me to read through that one? We haven't read through it yet.
Okay, yeah.
We're committed to providing ongoing training and awareness programs to our staff and volunteers to ensure they are knowledgeable about accessibility issues and how to aid individuals with disabilities. This includes training and providing inclusive customer service and recognizing and accommodating different types of disabilities.
Can I suggest you use the word support, maybe, instead of aid?
Support, yeah.
How to support individuals with disabilities.
Thank you.
Robin's got it in.
Yep, go ahead, Robin.
I think there could be kind of an addition in that I think you could use this committee for training and awareness. I think that would be a valuable tool for you to connect with the community. And that's part of the purpose of this committee is to, help you with ongoing evaluation or suggestions or feedback for your policy or whatever going forward.
Yeah, I think both.
Yeah, well, I that's a good point, but I wonder if I'm not sure if it goes in that section or it goes in the feedback and complaints may not be exactly what you want to call those.
Yeah.
It's kind of, ongoing dialogue with people with experience of disability.
Ongoing evaluation.
It's kind of advocacy as well for people in this community with disabilities. So I think it should go in training and awareness. And you could link it to other, feedback and complaints as well. But I think, a purpose of this committee is to assist with accessibility issues or concerns that, the built environment in our community might have. And, especially the lived experience aspect of our committee.
I don't know if I think you're trying to keep it simple.
Yes.
So
I'm just talking about a one-liner.
So under training, that can be supported by, will be supported by or guided by.
We could help facilitate.
I think
So no.
could we keep it really simple and just say public and committee input or something like that? Because then it could be any committee.
Yeah, the more simple the better, but I think it's useful to make that connection for this committee.
I'll remember in a minute. Nick's got his hand up.
I'm just wondering if this committee is actually going to come up with and deliver training.
No.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I kind of see it more in this consultation section.
I wasn't suggesting that. I was suggesting as part of, community engagement and you have a group of people connected to the Bowen Island municipality who are set up for accessibility issues or concerns in our community, and including developing policy around rec facilities, community, you know, the whole 9 yards, so.
So
Why
maybe,
not utilize them when you can if as part of, you know, your ongoing.
yeah, I think there may be people who are on the committee or are not on the committee, but maybe it's the last sentence is a training,
I don't think it, pardon me.
sorry, I was just gonna say training in providing inclusive customer service and recognizing and accommodating different types of disabilities in consultation.
Yes,
Community
There you
members.
go.
there it is.
So it's like you guys don't have to invent it all behind closed doors. You can do it in consultation with the community generally, which includes the committee and whatever other resources.
Whatever else. Yeah,
So it gets the idea of consultation. Yeah.
right,
All right. Very good.
no training.
Anybody else? I should pay attention here. Good, Peter, Jessica, Alex. And I'm sure we can send you stuff afterwards if we get, you know,
Please,
inspired
yeah.
tonight or whatever.
Would you like me to continue with the feedback and, yeah? We welcome feedback from members of the community on how we can improve accessibility on at the Bowen Island, I should say in the Bowen Island Community Center. If you have any concerns or complaints, take out complaints regarding accessibility, please contact us when we get that phone number and email, we'll put that in there. We will work to, now I'm not sure about this last sentence, how it comes across. We'll work to address your concerns in a timely manner and make any necessary changes to improve accessibility.
Do you need that?
I don't know.
Yeah, last sentence.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And I just have one suggestion.
Yeah.
And that, I think it does read better with at the Bowen Island Community Center.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah.
There's the outdoors and the getting in,
Yes.
and you're gonna have the patios and you're gonna have pathways and stuff.
True, thank you.
We're gonna talk about feedback opportunities later, for accessibility in general. That would be separate, I guess. Would that be separate?
Well, you
I'm
know-
not following.
So we have a list
In our
of feedback opportunities for accessibility at the municipality. It includes specific phone number for accessibility, text number, Dropbox,
Okay.
web page form, etc. So
See,
this is
people who-
different, like you want to go on with that or?
Might have concerns with your policy or your, with the community center might, come to the municipality.
Yeah, indeed.
So,
So there's a, you know, the link to that, the
so it,
feedback and complaints.
instead of contact, email, and phone, it includes something like, or to the
Or to
using
the
these other
municipality.
opportunities for input about accessibility.
This would be your number, is that?
No, I either assumed it was going to be like the front desk number or it would be a specific email address.
So we could use this one. That was sort of, so this is a group, like the group email of the CCJMC.
Mhm.
So then, but you're not on this list though, so we could forward it to you. Or, sorry, it wasn't.
I think we
these
can
are
let
my
these guys work it out.
But that is
Talk offline.
that is an interesting point about if you get feedback and it
Yeah.
doesn't go through this general channel, we may not appreciate it and vice versa.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what
So
I was-
coordinating feedback across many of the things that are happening about accessibility, we need to kind of be the.
Okay, I'll put the link in here.
so then I'm sorry, just a quick question here. So then in this feedback and advocacy, you know, instead of having that last line, would it you work to address and all that sort of stuff, would it be useful to have some sort of guideline on how we will go about this? Like we will come to the accessibility committee or we will research or we will, no?
I don't think
Not a
you need to
process.
put that in a policy.
Okay,
I mean, I think you'll do whatever makes sense to
sure.
on a case by case basis.
The municipality is going to have this eventually when we completed our accessibility action plan,
Mhm.
right? And so you may want to put a reference into that, but then it may get dated and you're part of the municipality, so I don't think you need anything there.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
As long as we've got a way to coordinate that.
I mean, I think we're going to have in our report something about monitoring and evaluation. You know, and if we decide that, you know, we want you to, you know, tell us every year what accessibility issues were raised and solved or report somehow. I don't think that that needs to be in your policy, but it's that kind of evaluation, like you're doing it, but are you going to, is there another policy about evaluating your services?
Well, I think the last point, changes to policy, sort of covers all of that off.
It could.
This policy may be updated or revised.
I'm thinking I have my, you know, my course evaluation mentality.
Yeah.
So if somebody does programming, do they have after it's, you know, they finish their IT course or whatever, is there a evaluation of the programs? And can that evaluation have on it if there were accessibility, good or bad things?
That's an idea.
So next, I mean, that would be through community rec for the most part. I'm not part of the programming side of things, but there's no reason that could be, I would assume, Jillian, but.
If we put it in our plan, then
we're big on evaluation, right, Kathy?
Well, I think that's how it's quality improvement.
Pardon me, I can't find a way to put my hand up. I understood somewhere that we were implementing a policy whereby the accessibility was going to be reviewed annually. Would this not be part and parcel of that process?
Exactly.
By the municipality?
Exactly. So they could anticipate that and just as they're collecting all their evaluations.
And I would suggest that we as a committee would like to be CC'd on any of that feedback so that we're up on it.
That's why I put that in the content from the last meeting.
That may not be pertinent to this particular item, but if you know what I mean, it's one big piece of work.
I think for now we just have put that idea out there. If we don't have our report yet and we don't know exactly how it's going to come down, but somehow we would love to know what you learned about accessibility and help you if there are things that we can help you with. So we need to create that communication.
Right.
So
your experiences are shared.
Yeah. But it might not need to be in your facilities policy.
Sure.
Yeah. One other thing that I was thinking is, you know, you talk about individuals, which is reasonable, but I'm thinking, you know, I would love for, you know, Sky or the Garden Club or, you know, other community groups who may want to have events at the center. Should we need to say something about it may also be groups, community groups that are going to need to comply with some of the accessibility mission of the center?
So, sorry for clarification, you mean when somebody signs a rental contract or goes into a rental agreement,
for example,
they would need to commit to following accessibility guidelines?
Yeah. That they would need to kind of comply with your best practices.
Sure.
So somebody rents a room to have a meeting that has a room system in it for communication, that they should
turn it on,
be obligated to turn it on.
Sure, yeah.
that kind of thing. So
under training and awareness, then we have
well, I think
for staff, volunteers, and user groups.
Yeah, that would get it.
Right.
And then I think that's covered in compliance with legislation as well. Yeah, PC Accessibility Act for one.
Sure, but I do think it is a great idea to have it in the rental policy because there's a whole other policy about rental, and I agree. I think that's an excellent thing to include.
Well, it's again, it's a way of, you know, spreading the knowledge and the awareness and modeling it. You know, soon everybody will just be doing accessibility. Right. Anything else you want us to say about this or anything?
If there are any other comments or anything like that, I'm always available. Maybe not always available, but I'm always open to receiving.
Yeah, well, that's great. I really appreciate this. All right, so I think we did have a few other items that we kind of tucked in there, knowing that you were coming.
Oh, yeah.
So one was, there was, I guess, a lighting package that the council discussed. And
We approved it, didn't we? Yes.
And I just, you know, I think if the purpose of that lighting package is, you know, for productions in the theater,
it is.
I don't think there are any accessibility issues that come to my mind, but does anybody else have anything that they could think of?
I did put poor Lee on the spot by asking questions about the mixer board and would there be other outputs
other than the lighting? Other
than the lighting or the whatever technology it evolves into. But I mean, maybe somebody's going to run it off their laptop in the future. Who knows? But my point was just that Lee was pretty certain that there were going to be multiple outputs, not just the FM for hearing, but also that might be another output, multiple whatever for streaming, for example, or that's as far as we got with that, I think. But he was pretty sure that was included in the package, sort of.
I believe if it's not already included in the package, the way the system was built was to be expandable and to be able to add more in the future anyways. It's a lot, theater systems now are a lot different than they used to be. Like there's hardly any plugging, it's all internet, right? It's all that. So the ability to add another piece of server with an input and output is relatively easy. Whether or not it's extremely cheap depends. So I'm pretty confident we'd be able to accommodate any, like the Auracast or any other accessibility.
All right.
When Lee was at the council meeting, he said the word Auracast. I didn't even have to say it. And this idea of flexibility came in. So
beautiful. Okay, that is very good news. And I will say, I don't know if you're going to stay to the end of the meeting, but and I know people aren't working in the usual way in August, but August 15th, if you happen to be around, there is innovation leader from one of the hearing instrument companies who wants to visit Bowen, and she has offered to provide one of not Auracast, but the best of the pre-Auracast technology for us to use in the center.
The Sonova Roger one, is that whatever?
Yes, exactly. So she is coming August 15th. She would like to come for the morning. That I'll bring along some other audiologists so we can all kind of brainstorm, and maybe she will, when we get to some of these grants, you know, and we need an industrial partner to kind of contribute, then that's happening. So, and if there's anything in the meantime about audio, then let us know. And furniture, I think, was the last topic, and there was some.
So that's we'd like some. Want me to start you off?
Yeah.
And then you probably haven't even seen it. The furniture samples. Did you see those? Yeah.
I saw them briefly from
Sophie. Yeah, so 3 companies they're looking at. Okay, here's company number 1. So you would have received it by email. Yeah, so you would have looked.
So I don't know if people have looked at this already. I don't know if you want to show it. You want to run through it, Steph? Do you think we have time?
There are 3 different companies. This is company number 1. Sofas and swivel chairs images were not available.
It keeps going. There are pictures somewhere.
Yeah.
They just blacked out the proprietary stuff.
Right. So I guess we'll need to describe the pictures for Jessica and Alex. So what are we looking at?
Looking at them briefly, and I apologize, I have had other stuff, I couldn't look at them earlier. But just for my dad, I don't think he could get out of that chair if he could get into it. So it need chairs with arms. And if I could just add something from the library, my experience on that is they got some chairs that had little wooden things that kind of, you could swing them out to put your drink on or something. I don't know what they're for, but they were really handy when we had, what was his name? Adam had written a book, a kind of physics book. He was quite physically disabled, and he was having to sign all these books for all these people. And that just having that little flap that could turn over so that his hand could fit onto it with support for the arm was really helpful. So I just thought you might want to pop down or talk to Tina about those chairs. Maybe they'd be useful. Maybe they're a total pain to clean or something. I don't know, but I just saw them be really useful. But chairs need arms so that people could stand up.
I think the kind of thing you're talking about is standard fare in any classroom.
Oh,
so any university classroom, you know, there's a thing you can flip up if you want to put your notebook on it or write, but you can flip it down.
Quite a bit smaller and wasn't in the way, like it wasn't an obstacle. It was just this little thing that you can, you know, swivel out. But anyway, you can have a look when you're at the library.
I think that's a good idea. I don't know.
Tina's on this committee, so we
I
can
think,
ask her.
I think Peter mentioned quite a bit about chairs in an earlier discussion about one thing having arms for sure. And a lot of these chairs to me look like very deep. So those are an issue for anybody with them. You'll get in there and never get out. They're just, you know, there's no arms for one, but also the base or the seating part or the back are just, the seat part is way too deep. And a lot of the chairs or the tables even had pretty high legs. I can't imagine, you know, a lot of people being able to utilize those pretty easily, especially without high legs like bar stools.
Oh.
And there's no arms on those, and the backs are very short. I think the back, also the angle is important.
Okay.
Some of them are short. I think they need, you know, fairly straight and relatively high back for support.
I think my feeling is that it probably isn't very productive for us to talk about each vendor, because I think all of them just didn't think about some of the ABCs of accessibility.
I agree.
So this kind of, you need to have arms, you need to have a height.
Peter's got his hand up.
Let me do my list and then I'll come to you, Peter. Color is another thing. Like there is no way you can have gray furniture on a gray floor. You know, it has to have contrast.
There's contrast.
So color, arms, height. If you have a wheelchair, you know, can you roll up under something? And many of the designs of the tables, it's like, you know, that would be a barrier. And upholstery with sound absorbing properties, one of the vendors noted, but the others did not. The other thing about chairs in classrooms, there's a humongous amount of noise produced by chairs scratching on the floor.
I was gonna say.
So in classrooms, you know, the quick fix is get a bunch of tennis balls and shove them on the feet of the chairs, but we don't want to, we don't need to do that. So making sure the legs of the chairs are not going to create scratchy noises. And this is furniture, but I'm also curious about window coverings and other coverings. So Peter, let's hear from you.
Thanks, Kathy. Thanks, Sue Ellen and Robin, for mentioning about the arms on the chairs and the deep chairs. I mean, obviously they're going to be different types of furnitures, and it's very nice to have a comfy couch to sit on, but sometimes it can be tremendously difficult to get out of it when you have to get up. The other thing I was going to mention is often with chairs, if you have trouble standing up, you want a chair that's not going to slide away underneath you as you try to stand up. So, I mean, chairs with, say, on wheels can be particularly problematic, or chairs that swivel can be problematic. If you're unsteady and you're trying to stand up. Obviously not every chair needs to be suitable for people like me, but at least if that can be considered for some of the chairs, I'd say, I mean, I think a mix of chairs is probably the way to go, you know, so for different people, we'll choose different chairs that suit them. But it would be nice to have some chairs available for people who have difficulty getting up and down.
I think that's a great point, a mix, because I know a guy who likes cozy wing chairs in the corner, sort of a little odd environment, you know. And so I think that speaks to Peter's point. It's a good one. Mix, because there are a range and mix of mobility issues in this community.
I think the other thing that is, you know, there are going to be children, and what is safe for children. So I'm not sure bar stools are gonna, that's not gonna work for children. So maybe some options for little people.
I was gonna bring up maybe one high chair, so somebody who's having a meeting could join, like those BC Ferries ones, you know, just a sort of one high one that can contain that child for 5 minutes while the person has half a cup of coffee. It's just one idea. And then the other one was, I just suggest you talk to Tina, because she's also brought in these, we've got at the library, a couple of these pods, soundproof pods. And depending on how you can be so flexible with your furniture, like I suggest you don't tie it down. Of course you won't, because you're going to want to make
the intention is for it to be
movable all around. Yeah, but I just suggest you touch base with Tina, because she's had about a year or a year and a half experience with the new furniture, and she's got a mixture in there from different sources, and some of it secondhand, I think. But anyway,
the other thing that I didn't see in any of that furniture is power. So, you know, when power outlets
into the furniture.
So when I don't know how you're going to do that, but you know, when I go to the airport lounge, when I go anywhere, when I'm in the ferry waiting room, it's like I'm getting the chair with the power because I want to recharge my phone or my computer.
Sure.
So where are the power outlets going to be, and are they going to be like spaces where people can go to recharge or plug in?
Well, and that's
I'm seeing Angus nodding.
and just thinking of Angus as well. In turn, some of this also the furniture, the types where you put them is also important. So, you know, that comfy chair, if it's in the middle of the room, won't make any difference for the guy who likes to have it where it's low light, and you know. So some of it's not just the furniture itself, but where you put it in the setting.
Right. This might be a little off topic, but I'm just thinking about library and the ferry. You can always tell when the power is out on some part of the island because there's a lineup at the few plugs on the ferry. And when you're thinking about furniture, you might think about where you might be putting a power bar when everybody descends on the community center to charge their phone and in a power outage. Anyway, but just to make sure you've got the flexibility to, I'm sure you've got the plugs and things all sorted by now, but the flexibility to put in more power bars and extension cords, and how will you keep people from tripping on them and all that?
Right.
If it comes up, I don't know how important that is.
Good idea. Thank you.
Can I just ask the clarifying question in case I'm included in the conversation with Sophie about this? So we don't want the chairs too low because then you can't get up and down, right? And then, but the bar stool is too high. Is that what you're saying?
So the first vendor explicitly said that the chairs are standard height.
Okay.
That's
So
what we want.
I think these are things that designers know. So I couldn't tell you how many centimeters it is, but I
Just
think
about the bar stools, what is the problem with those?
They're just not safe.
they're not safe.
They got a low
Like-
back and really long legs and
Okay.
I could see having some tables where, you know, they're at sitting height, but then if you want to have a reception, like
Yeah.
you know, to raise them so that people can stand around at a cocktail party. You know, the tables, you may want to adjust the height because it might be coffee table height, it might be desk height, it might be cocktail party height.
Mhm.
But the chairs, if you had a high table, you would probably be stand.
Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well,
Anyway, thanks for asking us and keep asking us.
yes, of course. Thank you. Thank you for all the help and input. Like, it's always appreciated, and anytime. Please don't hesitate.
I have one more. And this is related to Kathy, your question about the window coverings and things. Will, it's just to do with the audio. You've got your curtains and stuff all over and things like that. Or is that included in the furniture?
For the living
Window coverings? Yeah.
in the living room?
Yeah.
I have to look up to see what window coverings there are in the living room. There are blinds throughout the building in certain spaces.
Good. Okay.
But yeah, there's also, sorry, go ahead.
Sometimes if things are noisy and sounds are coming from the kids or the exercise class or something, pulling big furry curtains might help just cut down all the noise. I'm not sure. But
So Barry, who's you know,
Okay, yeah.
spent a lot of time within another contractor, I'm not sure of the name, and there are a lot of sound baffles that are hanging from the ceilings. All of the walls have sound absorbing things like that. So that has been considered throughout the building, particularly the living room and the small multi-purpose room.
good. So it sounds like you're not going to be relying on curtains. So that's great.
Hopefully,
Okay, thank you.
yeah. Okay,
Good.
Right, I think going once, going twice, I think we're good.
great.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Okay, so we have our action plan. And so Drew and I met this morning. He had holidays, I had visitors. We kind of were catching up. And I don't know how far you got, but we had a version at our May meeting, and he had another version, so we were integrating them. And previously, you're staying in the room. So previously, Robin had contributed to the evaluation section, and I had put in some stuff about the survey and the focus group, and then Sue Ellen, kind of between the last meeting and now, did some work, including a beautiful table, which we just loved.
Did you love it? Oh, good.
But what we couldn't, we spent a bit of time batting around where it should go. So I don't know if we have limited time, but basically.
Do you want to share anything, Drew?
Do you want to share anything? Yes. I'm not sure if I should hand this over to you. Or how do you want to do this?
I suppose. Do you want me to share a screen or something?
Oh, want to join?
Yeah. So what I propose is we just kind of do a little run through of the big structure and where we put your table and see if that makes sense to people, for example. And then we really want to get this thing done. So I think kind of the other thing, you know, we'll just kind of reconnect on the overview and the organization. Really, this section 6, which is the plan, we still need to do. So what I would like to suggest is that Drew and I and you know, possibly other people put together this for the section 6, which is where we really need to work. The mega list of every possible action we could recommend. And then we pass that around to people. I'm imagining it's going to be an Excel sheet. Similar, but not exactly the same as our previous Excel sheet. So we'll build on that. And then people can just speak now or forever hold your peace if we have missed anything. And then we make a gigantic list of everything. Everybody agrees that nothing has been left off. And then the next step, which we can do by email. We don't have to everybody gather and find a common topic. And then the next step will be a process where you can rate, you know, what you think are the most important. And then we will get everybody's ratings. And then that will be the lion's share of the work on section 6. I am just kind of curious now, if we would go around the table, if, so Sue Ellen, of all the things we've discussed over the months, what's your number one priority, just off the top of your head?
I'm interested off the top of my head, the multi-use pathway, just because it's transportation all the way across and so many.
Transportation, multi-use pathway. Robin, off the top of your head, pick one thing, your top pick, something different.
Housing.
Housing.
Accessible housing.
Okay.
Built environment, I guess.
Angus, do you have a top pick? The most important accessibility thing.
You wish we had.
You
come back to
you can, yeah, we can. Alex has got his hand up. Alex, what's your top pick?
Built environment features, both with the multi-use path, the community center, but also other infrastructure projects that the municipality has undergoing as well.
Okay, so we'll take the community center because Sue Ellen already said multi-use. Peter, do you have a top pick? Okay, Angus.
Use path and built environment.
Okay. Okay, so we have a agreement on that. Peter, do you have one top pick?
Well, just being selfish, yeah, the multi-use pathway, but generally infrastructure, you know, accessibility infrastructure for me, and I think many others, just things that help people get around. But I don't know that I can say one thing's more important than anything else.
Okay, Nick, do you have a top pick?
Something that I think would be useful in terms of accessibility is an on-demand bus that is an accessible bus.
Yep. Okay, Alex, do you have another one? Where's your hand?
No, mine. I was just gonna say that
Jessica.
I think it's important to also note that there'll be, in the long list of things that are generated, there'll be a lot of very quick ones that can be addressed off the top.
Right.
Quick wins, as I would call them.
Yep. Jessica, do you have anything?
my top one, I mean, it's sort of relevant to the multi-use path, but it's not exclusive to that, is tactile markings wherever there's either flat, wherever there isn't curbs. There are some examples on the multi-use path. Or maybe at certain crossings. It's the tactile markings that, to me, because it's a safety thing for me. So I noticed that personally.
So partly I wanted to do that because I think if we make a big list and people can rank, it's going to be doable. You know, you already have thought about this for so long. And I'm pretty sure we're going to get to that list and it's going to have, you know, the multi-use pathway, it's going to have the transportation, it's going to have the beaches, it's going to have the center. So I don't think we're going to have a lot of dispute about, you know, the short list of things. And then the next piece, so we make a big list, we do some kind of ranking, and then we pass the baton to Drew, who will have the great expertise to then say, just like what Alex said, you know, what's already done, what's already in the works, what could be in the future that's, you know, easy to do, and then what's in the future that's hard to do, and work out kind of the feasibility and all of that, which will build on what Sue Ellen did in her table.
Yeah, and I was heading that way with this table too, because this table sort of links to the different sources where you can click on it and you get to a work plan or a piece of budget, or, you know, where is it all? And there's probably more things I could add here, like the evacuation plan that I think Jessica brought up and that kind of thing. So it's not comprehensive, but it was just an idea to try and, what do we already have that's underway? Yeah. And so I hope it can be of some use, but anyway, over to you.
So what I'm just thinking, you know, I think the end is in sight, even though it still feels like we have a long way to go. I think we can kind of be aggressive on this and do things by email. And then hopefully by our next meeting, if we have the content pretty much done, then we have enough time to go through, you know, other steps until it gets to council in September. That's what we worked out, Steph.
Yeah. You want to make your comment?
Oh, just that besides the table, there was also this little bit of text, and I checked these paragraphs with Martin Clark, who was the community school coordinator back in the 80s. And he said, yeah, that's about right. So just so you know, I know Alex knows more, and Jessica, probably others know more than me, but because I bumped into him and I sent him an email as well, but all did a little bit of checking. But these are, the point of the little paragraphs was to say we've already made a lot of progress. Exactly. And got a lot of social infrastructure to work on to build on.
Okay, are you going to share, Drew?
Sorry, just before to answer your question, we did come up, Kathy and I came up with the timeline, which would have this group signing off or like recommending a draft plan to council on July 15th, next meeting.
Mm-hmm.
What? That's insane. Maybe can we do a workshop in the middle of that somehow?
I think we have to work on email.
Okay.
Well, just I think what's important at this point right now, if we're, you know, trying to develop this plan and have Drew draft it, is make clear what we're going to come up with, even if it's by email. Because, you know, prior to any of that back and forth, what do you want the basic plan to look like? Because we have the template from the province. We have guidelines and toolkit from Disability Alliance. We've been kind of following a lot of that. How do we make this, you know, because we've got a lot of, if you look at the May 2nd information, There's a lot in there.
Yeah, it has to be boiled down and smoothed out for sure. I think that's right. We have more than we need. We just have to kind of crystallize it.
Councillor Turns in there.
Yep, Alex, go ahead. Do you still have your hand up?
Sorry. I'm not sure where it fits into the agenda. And this is fine if we just put onto for another agenda. But at some point, just wanted to let the accessibility committee know that I'm chairing the Bowen Island app subcommittee of the Community Economic Development Committee. Wasn't sure where to exactly put this.
There's nobody saying?
Nope. The Bowen Island, what?
Bowen Island app. So there's the Economic Development Committee's got a bunch of subcommittees that are doing the work.
Yeah.
And Alex is chairing. What, now you're looking at feasibility or possibility of developing an app or?
Correct, for Bowen Island.
Yeah, like, so that would be like ferry scheduling or ferry tracking.
Yes, and a bunch of related features and accessibility has been something that we've really wanted to make in from the beginning.
Nice.
More than happy to talk about that on another agenda.
Can you send us some stuff to insert that? Can you send us whatever you think would be useful to insert into the report?
Absolutely.
So then we thought about a July 15th sign off, send to council. But then council doesn't meet in August.
No, until September.
So we would have August 26th that we do. So between our July 15th sign off and get some art or some design done. And then August 26th, hoping to get the draft for council.
So that they have to have the input by August 26th so that it's on their September agenda.
Yeah.
So we basically would need to have it prettied up after our July 15th meeting. There'd be about a month to kind of make it look pretty.
Yeah, and nothing you guys need to worry about.
Yeah.
Great.
I also should acknowledge Jessica sent some content about emergency responses and the evacuation plan. So thanks for that.
Yeah, I'm really sorry I didn't send that sooner. That was work that I actually finished up in January and then completely forgot about, and I am so sorry.
That's okay. So anybody else who has anything sitting on their desk that could go into this report, please send it to us because we'll be kind of trying to organize it. Anyway, poor Drew is waiting here. So shall we just do a zoom through the document? And it's going to look ugly. So don't worry about how it looks.
It's a draft document, right?
It's going to be pretty when it's finished. Let's see. Are you sure? What's up on that screen?
It's him now. You'll have my.
Okay. All right. Oh, there it is. Okay. All right. So do you want?
It's up there.
I'm kind of in a zoomy mood. Do you want me to talk?
Sure.
Oh, do you mind? I don't know. I'm also looking at the clock here, so we have very few minutes. So these are our table of contents we always had. And if you scroll down, we are going to put in some of your background information, Sue Ellen, into this intro thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's a bunch of stuff about Bowen that Drew had prepared. So who are we? And keep going. And then it's about the committee and the mandate. So all of that is the introduction he's been working on. Who's on the committee? Some definitions.
Just make a comment about our story, like, and using Sue. That's for organizations who have a lot of experience with accessibility. So in terms of our story, you might want to because that's basic, a lot of it's about the CNIB, which, you know, of course, Alex completely knows that they have a lot of experience in this community. So the idea of our story is what you have as a municipality have done, you know, relative to how it fits into the plan. Just, you know, clarifying that. Because if you look on the Disability Alliance framework, our story is for organizations. So it might be more like the history of some, you know, weave that in with accessibility included in to date. Unless.
Do you want to go to where we have the approach?
Yeah, because I was trying to figure out how we'd include it in the plan.
So this is kind of, you know, we took a little bit of change and put this kind of the approach is that, you know, we have this
So I don't mean to take time.
provincial stuff, but
It's
then
just a comment.
and then we identified the committee, and then we reviewed documents, but we have values. And then we put in this table of Sue Ellen's here, kind of existing policies. So it's not in section 5, it moved up to section 3.
That's totally fine with me, and that does speak, that's specifically to Bowen Island Municipality, plus a couple of partnerships like the funders. The part that right now has the label on it of your story, that can go anywhere. I don't mind where it goes. But the point is, I think I've been looking at some other plans, like here's the Strathcona Regional District did a plan, a bunch of little places, and it has things like many individuals with disabilities in rural remote areas of the region rely on accessing essential services, working together, pool resources, knowledge, skills. A lot of these seem to have include the community as well and invite everybody to take action about accessibility. It's why I wrote it that way. It doesn't have to be that way, but it is kind of the story of Bowen Island, not of the municipality. I think of the municipality as new. It's only 20 years old. We don't have a lot of stuff yet.
So the plan itself is supposed to be
if it has a real detailed, you know, this must be here. I didn't look at all that. I just wrote down some words that might be useful. So
I think we can make that handshake, you know, like just start with.
Because a lot of plans don't include a story at all. And it's more about the plan is for accessibility for the broad community as well. And how accessibility has been looked at by the organizations that the plan is for. Not, you know what I'm saying? Not just so
I think if we kind of
historical context.
If we have this kind of bigger historical context, it's like 1% of the document. And it's just kind of to warm people up, and then we get on with
it can be woven in there. I'm just making that comment.
Yeah, that's good. Anyway.
And then this framework that Sue Ellen did could be added to.
That's right. Okay, so I think that's what I wanted the group to weigh in on, was that, and Sue Ellen, you're okay with this being up front, because this is just kind of the inventory of these things with some relevant facts. And then later on in that section 5, you know, Drew had gone through the official community plan and he'd extracted chapter and verse, the relevant pieces. So the kind of, and what did we take out of these that, you know, speaks to accessibility, then it will go in the next section.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we wanted to run by. Is that good? Yeah.
That sounds good.
So we'll kind of keep going with the ball and send you some stuff by email. And hopefully we'll cut to the chase here by July.
Yeah.
So I think our time is up. So if you're okay with that, we will just go ahead and check your email. All right. Is that good with you, Steph? I don't know if there's any new business or other business.
Nope.
But I just want to kind of maybe note under there that there have been some communications like from Tina and other ideas about research. So this is not the time for that, but we'll just kind of, you know, these are brewing. And even though we're not gonna, we need to do the report and then we can apply. If people have ideas, we can kind of start to, you know, that'll be the work that we might get to in the fall. So keep that on the back burner.
Oh, you mean plan, right? Not report. Plan.
Yes, exactly. And
Sorry,
yeah. And then information items, we have a list here.
No, it's just for reference.
Just for reference, and I don't think we have any questions, and we know when we're meeting, and we know our plan to get us to this thing being on the council table in September.
Yeah. Very good.
So,
and if it's, you know what, it doesn't work out, a little bit later, that's okay. It's like,
so I think we can adjourn. Don't we have dinner? Everybody, thanks for everybody showing up.
That's great.
That's one way to first hope.
Oh, thank you.
So can you?
Bye, guys. Bye, thank you.
We'll be watching our email. See you later.
We can talk about when
Thank you.
the current